Hey everyone, Rob from Dyson again. Today is the 26th of April 2020. It's a Sunday, and once again I'm up at Hobble Creek. Alright, so some quick updates. I didn't do a lot with the forge this week. As you know, I started work again, and due to a couple of factors, one being that I was furloughed for a while and stuck at home, and my body wasn't used to the work, and so I'm rebuilding up my tolerance, and I was just exhausted. I had an opportunity to go to the forge, and I ended up having to call and cancel just because I was just too tired. The other factor behind that was due to one person quit and some other issues. I was doing different jobs which were a little bit more physical. So not only was I recovering from my furlough, I was also doing more strenuous stuff. But I did get some work done. In fact, I am working on a railroad spike knife for a friend of mine that you might see some videos coming up on that. So that being said, I haven't done much physical, but I actually have been watching some videos, including Black Bear Forge. If you're into blacksmithing, I really recommend him, along with Alec Steele, and also the person who I started watching first, who's really good, Purgatoryironworks. I'll see if I can't get links to all of their channels down below. In regards to my writing, I've made a decision that the story I'm working on, I am going to go ahead and shelve for right now. As I was, working on it, and I just kept on, wall, just not really feeling it. And I've decided I'm going to go back to my original project that's spun off, this project that I'm shelving. Quick backstory, I had this idea. It was one of those little shower thoughts. I'm like, hey, wouldn't this be a cool scene? And then I took that scene and I started fleshing it out. But then I'm like, my writing style isn't all that good right now. My technique isn't all that good. Why don't I write a couple of short stories, maybe even get them published and make a little bit of money off the short stories, and work on those. It's based in the same world, same universe, but just a completely different location with completely different characters. I had a rough idea that I actually pulled off of, the concept came from a D&D stream I watched, Critical Role. And I'm like, what, this is actually an interesting thought. Let's go ahead and pursue this. And so I had, basically it was going to be a MacGuffin story. And I had no idea what the MacGuffin was going to be, how it was going to play into the world, how it was going to, etc., etc., etc. And it's just, I could never get into writing it. I never knew where the story was going. At least with this other story, I have some concepts of where it's going to go. Now, I'm a seat-of-your-pants writer primarily. I'll have some rough ideas of where I want it to go in my head, but I don't have a full-on structure, and kind of see where the story goes. That story was actually going somewhere until I decided, I'm going to focus on these short stories and improve my craft. So I'm going back to that, and you know what? If my craft isn't good, that's what revisions are for. That's what editors and writing groups and stuff like that are for. And if I finish it, hey, I finished a novel even if it never gets published, which will put me ahead of, one, where I've been, but also a large amount of the writing community. People who like to think of themselves as writers but have never finished a project. And that's really what I can do. So I'm going to be going back to that original story. and see if maybe I can get some flow there. In regards to ranching, I've actually, well, a couple of things. First, I'm working on transplanting my plants that I started from seed. I am not a natural gardener by any means. I figured that out real quick. But hey, like any skill, you have to learn. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm trying to learn and see if I can't make this grow, see what I can do to make it better, or otherwise not. I really need to work on my journaling skills, if nothing else. The journal app I have, even if I just make an entry, it automatically records a few things that I think would be handy to go back into and look. In the other part of ranching, I've watched some videos on it, and right now I am not 100% sold on going to cattle. In fact, right now I'm actually looking to go into buffalo, American bison. So, yes, I know there's an actual difference between bison and buffalo, but most people in America, when you say buffalo, they think of the American bison. And so I'm starting to look into that. Starting to do my research on bison. I'm also considering, I definitely plan on doing at some point, pigs. And either chicken or duck or both. Chicken or duck probably will never be my primary product, but I think it would be a good supplementary product. Pigs, I've watched several videos about these people who raise pigs on pasture and the product that they're creating, and the appeal to that is, one, the fast turnover. Pigs are very prolific. Anyone who lives in a state plagued by wild boar, they very prolific, very hardy, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's something like a sow can have 2 or more litters a year, with 4 to 6 piglets each. So a couple of breeding stock, you can actually turn out a lot of pork. So that's something I'm considering as well. As I'm going through all of this, I've been listening to my podcasts and everything else. I was sitting here at Hobble Creek thinking about what I wanted to say. One, I'm thinking I need to probably put a little bit more structure into this, take better notes about what's going on throughout the week, and actually have more material handy written down for me to kind of base these on. These will still be largely unscripted. If anything, there'll be bullet points I want to hit. But I was sitting out here watching the creek, thinking about what I wanted to talk about. Listening to a podcast, in particular, I was listening to Jack Spirko talking about COVID-19. But it wasn't exactly what he was saying that prompted this thought. But it reminded me of 2 leadership principles that the Marine Corps teaches. They actually have leadership traits and leadership principles. Well, I'm pretty sure this is part of the principles part. I haven't reviewed it for a while. But the first one, and this came up in a conversation I was having with my fellow employees, and we were talking about the fact that I used to be an aircraft mechanic, and he said, "Oh, that's so cool, that kind of stuff," and yada yada. And I was a mediocre mechanic at best. I got the job done. Wasn't the fastest, wasn't the prettiest, but I could usually get the job done. But what I really enjoyed, and what I was really good at, is being out on the flight line. And doing the inspections on the jets, doing, launching jets, recovering jets, fueling jets, making sure everything was ready to go, that when the pilots walked, they could step into their jets, go through their startup routine, and go. I could taxi them in, and, provided the pilot was actually paying attention, I could put that jet exactly where I wanted it. And we were talking about that, and I referred to the fact that because my particular shop, we weren't power plants and we weren't flight line like some squadrons I understand are divided up into. We were power line. We did both. And I had a good sergeant, Sergeant Sanchez. And he took a look at me, what I was good at, what I wasn't good at. And as much as possible, I ran the line. I was out there on the line with other Marines, obviously. It's not like I ran the line for the entire squadron by myself. But I was out there, launching jets, doing inspections, all that kind of stuff. And the principle that that's based on is know your Marines and employ them to the best of their capabilities. He knew I wasn't that great of a mechanic, and he had other Marines that were better mechanics than I were, who enjoyed the mechanical part. They wanted to be in the hangar doing the work. They didn't particularly enjoy being out on the line. So, I was out on the line. And they were in doing what they were best at and what they enjoyed the most. Oh, there's another one that I consider very closely tied to that. And that's probably the one I want to speak on today, which is know yourself and seek self-improvement. So every time I was out on that line, or when I was doing mechanical work, because there were times where they needed me on the mechanic work and they weren't exactly doing a whole bunch with launching jets. I was constantly trying to improve. And the more I've read in the civilian world and the more of all that's gone on, I've been trying to do that. Have I always been successful? No. But it's something that I have been trying to be very intentional with, very cognizant of, is seeking to be better. And someone once pointed out, and this has gone the round so much that I don't think anyone will ever conclusively come up with the first person who's ever said this, definitely not me, was if you only improve yourself 1% a day, only 1%, at the end of a year, you'll be 365% better than you were at the beginning of the year. Sorry, I'm just looking in the camera and noticing that it's about time to trim my beard. But, if you can just do that, and you know what? Let's be honest. You're not going to be 1% better every single day. You're going to have days where you're 0% better. You're going to have some days where you're even worse. But you're going to have other days where you have breakthroughs and stuff like that. And next thing you know, you're 5% better. You're 10% better. And really the goal is, no matter how the math works out, to be better, preferably 365% better than you were at the beginning of that year. Whether we're talking about a fiscal year or a calendar year, whatever, be that much better than you were at the beginning of the year. And obviously this is going to spread out over many things. And what you can do is, if you want to do a really intentional focus, you can pick one skill, one attribute, and say every day I want to be 1% better at this one skill, and be very focused on that. For me, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to spread that out over my entire life. I've been doing a lot of self-reflection lately. Not a whole lot, as in, I'm sitting there just spending all my time doing navel gazing. But I've been actually doing a lot of thinking, which can be both a good thing and a bad thing, but in this case it's a good thing. I'm like, there are certain things in my life that I need to get out of my life, things that I've struggled with for my entire life. And I'm like, yeah, I need to start working on that again. Now, I personally don't think... Well, let me rephrase that. Once again, this is a rambling podcast, I'm sorry. But... because some of these are problems that I've been dealing with, like I said, almost my entire life. Definitely all my adult life. Yeah, I'm not going to just magically flip a switch and it's going to be gone. I wish it was that easy for me. However, I'm like, you know what? There's certain thing I need to, if not eliminate, reduce in my life. I've had this thought many a times. It's a problem that I know I've had. And I've gone through a lot to try and, get rid of it. And other times where I just don't care and just totally give in, etc., etc. But I'm like, okay. It's time for me to make another push towards pushing this out. And the good thing is I have a lot of activities to replace it with. So that's basically what I think I want to say. I'm going to go ahead and end it here just so I don't go rambling on. You might get a few other videos in the process of me working on other things, but it'll be work videos, not me rambling videos. So, anyways, once again, I encourage you guys to, examine your life and to figure out what it is you want to do and then work towards it. Even if it's just small steps, work towards your goals. And try and be that 1% better. Know yourself and seek self-improvement. All right, Fin Dyson out.